What is up, boys and girls? We are back for the Week 12 NFL preview, going over the top matchups for running back and wide receiver next week, Week 12. We're using our team defense tool. It is one of the many tools we have on LineStar. You can get access to that on our website or on the apps. Now, let's get into it. I'm your host, Tyler Weeman, at FlatTyler83 on your DFS sites. And come join us at LineStar. There is a free 7-day trial through the app stores, Android or iOS. It can get you access to all you will see here and much, much more for all sports we cover, both website and app. Now, let's dig in. Let's hit it quick. Get over to the old team defense tool. We have 10 games on Draftkings, and we have an 11-game slate on Fanduel. I'm going to go over the Fanduel one because we have that last game there, so it just gives us access to everything instead of just the 10 games. There is a wide receiver from that last game, and so for wide receivers, I'm going to do 6 instead of 5, but let's dig in. We'll go to running back, starting with Rico Dowdle versus the Washington Commanders. Commanders have given it up a little bit to the running back. The touchdowns are up. They have been tough in the receiving game, but rushing-wise, giving up 139 yards a game and 1.3 touchdowns. Dowdle is the number one now. 15 touches, 12 touches, 17 touches. So, the last week getting mid-high teens in touches. Now they get the Commanders where, they may struggle to stay in the game to pull down his carries a little bit, but the touchdown upside is there. Dowdle is one of the key pieces of this offense. And it's at least a little bit interesting going to Dowdle, who will likely be low owned, because really, who wants to go to anybody in the Dallas offense right now, let alone the running back? But I think Dowdle does have a fairly clear path to a big game if he's able to get it moving. A little bit interesting, surely going to be a lower owned option. If he ends up high owned, I don't really love him, but don't mind having a little bit. Next, we got Brian Robinson. So same game, just getting over to the other running back, Dallas, 27th versus RB1. They aren't giving up as many yards, 114.5 per game over the last 4, but giving up 1.3 touchdowns over the last 4. And that's the same over the over the season, 1.3 touchdowns. Brian Robinson has been used a ton near the goal line, and he is a good bet to get an anytime touchdown, especially this week versus the Cowboys. I am definitely interested in some B-Rob if he's going to go low owned. Commanders are at home. They're likely, leading most of the game, which just leans into a heavy run game script. Very interested in some Brian Robinson Jr. Next, we got Rachaad White, Tampa Bay Bucks versus the Giants. There's another one where game script is likely in the running back's favor. And if we see from the data here, running backs are not only in a good spot in the receiving game, they are also in a good spot in the rushing game. Now, this Buccaneers spot is a 1A, 1B situation. There's Irving and White. Both are getting, a big chunk of the share. Buck should be getting Mike Evans back this week, so that might take away some targets from White, but he is still a very interesting spot. In this particular matchup where the Giants are likely going to be down a little bit, they've also been giving up, 169.8 rushing yards per game and 0.8 touchdowns. I'm a little more interested in Bucky Irving than I am Rachaad White, but both backs are interesting. Rachaad White can get there. He's had some big games this season, and I wouldn't be that surprised if he had another one here. but Bucky Irving is just as interesting as White, as it is a 1A and 1B situation. It's not necessarily a RB1 versus RB2 situation in Tampa Bay. Very interested there. Next, we got Rhamondre Stevenson versus the Miami Dolphins. They're giving it up a little bit, but more so at the touchdown spot. They're allowing 1 touchdown a game on the season. However, over the last 4, the Dolphins have been stingy a little bit, only giving up 0.3 touchdowns to the running back. They've got in the passing game, but been very tough in the rushing game, only allowing 62 yards per game. Now, the Stevenson kind of goes how the Pats go. If the Patriots are scoring some points, Stevenson generally has a decent game, high teens, maybe low 20s. But if the Pats aren't moving that ball, then Stevenson has a bad game. And one of the things with Stevenson is I would not mind, if I'm going to play him, having some guys on the other side of the field for the Dolphins offense, just hoping this game is just a little higher scoring. The Patriots are absolutely fine playing a 12-9 game and hoping at the end of the game they have a chance to win. We saw it against Chicago, 19-3. They want to slow the game down and do it that way, but we want a little more offense. So if I am playing Stevenson, I'm probably also playing somebody from the Dolphins. But Stevenson is in an interesting spot, and it's one we should break down. We should also definitely look into why the Dolphins have been so much tougher over the last 4 games versus running backs. And lastly, we have Isiah Pacheco, Kansas City Chiefs versus Carolina Panthers. Pacheco is expected back. We still have to wait official word for that, so this could be a Kareem Hunt spot. And I think the 2 spots are much, much different. I do not think the Chiefs are scared at all of just giving Kareem Hunt a ton of carries and letting him, run the ball down the Carolina Panthers' throat to end the game. However, I am worried the Kansas City Chiefs will want to do that with Isiah Pacheco coming off of injury. And I don't think the Carolina Panthers are going to be able to keep this game very close. So if Pacheco is the starter, I'm probably out. If it's Kareem Hunt as the starter, then I very much like this spot and have no worries to play Kareem Hunt. If it's Pacheco starting, I just worry that he's really going to get his, 20 touches or whatever he needs to be optimal. I just kind of doubt that KC coming off injury would risk that when they don't really need to, and they would have a capable backup in Kareem Hunt right there to run the ball down their throats. Now, let's get over to wide receiver 1. Over the last 10 games, best spot has been versus the Detroit Lions, and we got Michael Pittman Jr. He had 8 targets, 5 for 46. Anthony Richardson is the quarterback for the Colts now and should be for the rest of the season. For that reason, I'm not super into Michael Pittman. I just don't believe Anthony Richardson is that good of a quarterback in the short to intermediate area of the field. And that's where Michael Pittman lives. I would more likely use an Alec Pierce or Mitchell, who will get down the field a little bit. Nothing against Pittman. I think he's a great player. And at 5,700, he starts to get pretty interesting. But I do worry about Richardson's ability to get him that ball in medium, downfield, close to intermediate kind of area of the ball. It's just not Richardson's, forte. It's not what he's best at. I do think Richardson is going to be much better from here on out, but it's a tough click for Pittman for me. Next, we got CeeDee Lamb versus the Washington Commanders. CeeDee Lamb came out and had 12 targets, was 8 for 93 versus Houston. Now he has a little bit easier of a matchup versus the Commanders. Now, the Commanders have been very tough over the last 4, only allowing 120 yards and 0.5 touchdowns to the wide receiver spot. They also brought in Marshawn Lattimore. So this Commanders team and their secondary is much improved and improving. That defense as a whole has improved big time. I don't love this spot for CD. I think 8,400 is still a bit expensive for him, with Cooper Rush being the quarterback there. So don't love the spot, but 12 targets could happen again, and CD is plenty good enough to make that work. Next, we got Tyreek Hill versus the Patriots. Patriots haven't been good versus wide receiver ones all year long, and over the last 4, they are giving up 166 yards per game to the wide receiver and 1.3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill has had a rough start, but it is a wrist injury. It is not legs or something like that, which that is what he really needs to get open, is his legs, because he is based on speed. He 8 targets last week, was 7 for 61 and a tutty. His only issue so far this season has been targets. The target volume has been down. Is the wrist bothering him? Probably a little bit. He's definitely not been himself, but he still has the ability to get open. He can still get deep. I'm still very interested in Tyreek, and I think, once again, people are going to be off him a little bit. He showed up well enough for me to consider him this week. All right, now we have Calvin Ridley versus the Houston Texans. I'm in. Calvin Ridley, over the last 4 weeks, since D-Hop is traded, 15 targets, 8, 9, 6. The targets are there. He's in a great spot versus the Texans. Lamb just had 12 targets versus the Texans, and Will Levis, Cooper Rush, both of them are similar caliber quarterbacks. With maybe Levis being a little bit better, that's one that you guys can debate on your own. But I'm fine going to some Calvin Ridley here. They're giving up 166 yards per game to the wide receiver and 1.5 touchdowns. If there's a touchdown through the air, it's most likely going to Calvin Ridley. So give me it, and let's hope for a big game. We know there is ceiling out of Calvin Ridley, so it's an interesting spot. Next, A.J. Brown versus the Los Angeles Rams. A.J. Brown has had a monster year when he's been healthy, and I'm absolutely in going back to A.J. Brown. The Rams allowing 179.8 reception yards per game over the last 4 with 1.5 touchdowns. If there's touchdowns, if there's deep plays, it's likely going to A.J. Brown. And the Rams have a solid defense or solid offense, so they can actually put up some points versus the Eagles. And if the Eagles are being pushed at all, it just means more throwing. There's been very few games this year where the Eagles have had to be pushed and really keep their foot on the gas. If they have to keep their foot on the gas, A.J. Brown is in an absolutely smash spot. Now, I promised 6 wide receivers because one was in that night game, so it is for you Draftkings people. But we got Marvin Harrison Jr. versus the Seattle Seahawks here. So, Seahawks giving up 172 yards per game over the last 4 and 1.3 touchdowns. My only worry with Marvin Harrison is his target volume. Does that change after the bye? It possibly could. Right now, he's averaging 6 targets a game, but over the last 4 games, it's been 5.8. When he gets his targets, he has produced. He will disappear and not be targeted some games. So there is high variance in this spot, but it is a very interesting one. Seattle has struggled to defend wide receivers, and Marvin Harrison is solid, but we are still yet to see big-time targets going his way. If that changes this game, he is in a great spot, and I don't mind having some. Very interested in him. That'll do it for us today, guys. Hope you guys had a good one. Hope this helps you. And if you are a Line Star sub, you can really kind of work with this tool, going to last 5, go to last 10, go to last 2, and you can see kind of how defense may be changing or how they play, certain spots. There's a lot of good information to find just from this one tool, and we still have lots of others to help you. Have a good one. We'll be back later this week. Peace.